I love the first Die Hard film. To my shame, I have only seen the first two. I keep meaning to watch the others, and I will at some point. I just never get around to it. So if you think the third one's definitely worth kind of pushing forward, let me know and I'll watch it as soon as. But for me, the second one's pretty decent. The first one's obviously incredible. The second film's not quite as good, but I still really enjoyed it. And this one, it's got a lot of the same tropes going into it, the same feelings, obviously some of the same characters. Will there be spoilers for this from the first film? No, I don't think there will be, but I won't spoil anything for this film in case you haven't seen it. So the sequel was released in 1990, directed by Renny Harlin, with a screenplay by Stephen Souza and Doug Richardson. And it stars, of course, Bruce Willis as John McClane. And the description from IMDb is as follows. John McClane attempts to avert disaster as rogue military operations seize control of Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. So, first of all, completely different location. And having an airport held hostage is a thrilling plot for a film, because not only is this a pretty terrifying location, airports are just generally really scary with all their scanners and, they're very heavily security controlled, so they're quite intimidating. But then they're also very vast, and you're going to have a lot of people in there, and that makes it quite, foreboding. And there are no runway lights, and everything is just a race against time. And it's up to John McClane to save the day. And I think there is no way of predicting how this unfolds. Granted, I'm not the biggest fan of action films like this, so maybe if you've seen lots of these kind of films, you can predict it. But if, like me, you're just kind of dipping your toes into action now and again, then it's a thrill ride. It really, really is. I don't know why I love films set in airports or on planes, but I just really find them kind of refreshing and a different location to just a building. So for me, that worked really well as an aspect. McClane as a character, I obviously love. He's absolutely brilliant. Bruce Willis is fantastic. That doesn't need to be said. In terms of carrying on from the first film, obviously there are certain... You have the other film in the back of your mind, I guess, while you're watching this, but you don't need to have watched the other film to see this. However, I do thoroughly recommend that you watch the first film first, because it's brilliant. I feel like there's a lot more emotion in this one, particularly for Holly McLean, played by Bonnie Bedelia. It's a bit more involved, a bit more emotive, but it's still very high intensity. The camera angles are wonderful. You're dealing with vast spaces, but there's also a lot of close-up intensity when you feel the pace of the film quicken up and you really become kind of part of it, part of the action. It's got a rating of 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb, which for any sequel film is brilliant. For the record, Die Hard has 8.2 out of 10, which is phenomenal. It is really such a great film, and this is coming from somebody who doesn't really care for action films too much, so it's one that I thoroughly enjoyed. I will watch the third film, as I said, and, all the ones that come after it. I'm not actually sure how many there are. But if you think the third one's worth watching sooner rather than later, let me know. But for now, I'm pretty happy with having watched the first two. I'm still feeling very positive about the series as a whole. Maybe I'm not watching the third one so eagerly because I'm worried it will not live up to the other two. But considering there are various films after that, I'm sure that's not the case. Die Hard 2 may not be as good as the first film, but it's still great. It takes the things that we love from the first film, puts it in a different location, different scenario, different mix of characters, and really goes for it. And it really delivers. It's a film I will happily watch again.